Welcome in. Thursday is here. We are back at it through the haze, and we have got a lot to unpack. We need to talk about the USC Trojans as they have struggled up to this point in the season, but we've talked about a problem with USC, which has been the defense. We're going to talk about that, but I have to pose the question to all of you. Do you believe USC's problems run deeper than just the defense? We're going to unpack that. We also need to talk about Oklahoma taking on Kansas this weekend in a game where Oklahoma can make a statement. We need to talk about how. We then need to keep our attention in the Big 12, where the Texas Longhorns got one of the biggest recruiting wins of the year thus far, and being able to pull Ryan Wingo away from Missouri. We're going to talk about why that battle was so unique and why Missouri may just make all of college football have a massive shift. Before we get into all of that, we need to hit up these comments. Guys, thank you for being in here. Jacob, Steven, Eric, my guys, thank you for being in here. Hope your Thursday is going well. We've got a lot to unpack. And I think that one of the ways we can start this off is we're going to talk about Texas's huge win, because they pulled a 5-star wide receiver yesterday from Missouri. And I know those of you who are listening are probably thinking, yes, Texas wins a 5-star receiver from Missouri. That's not special. And typically, you would probably be right. But in this instance, we need to unpack this a little bit, because I contend that Missouri is going to force an evolution from most states in terms of how they do NIL legislation. When I say that, Missouri has passed a law that allows high school athletes to be able to benefit off of their name, image, and likeness so long as they are committed to a Missouri institute and sign a financial aid agreement. That shifts the landscape for college football recruiting drastically. It undoubtedly gives the Missouri Tigers a leg up on their competition whenever they're being able to pitch to these homeschool athletes. And in Missouri, there's typically some really talented players. I mean, this class alone, if we look at 24/7 sports rankings in and of themselves, Missouri has 2 top 5 players in their state. If we look at the 24/7 sports composite rankings, they have 2 top 25 players in their state. Suffice to say that they have some talent in the state, and that law is going to help Missouri talent stay in Missouri. But how long before other states copy and mirror that law? Remember, NIL, after all, is a copycat era. That's exactly where we are. We are in a copycat era, because whenever any of these institutions do something that will inevitably give them a competitive advantage, you can bet your bottom dollar that the suitors will follow. Right now, Missouri has a competitive advantage. They have the ability to go out there and pitch something that these other colleges can't. It's part of the reason that when Williams Nwaneri picked Missouri over Oklahoma, I don't think too many people were surprised. Yes, Oklahoma was in fantastic position, but it's impossible to argue with that NIL law. The other thing we need to talk about is that Missouri is playing really well this year. In fact, far better than anybody would have anticipated. I think most people out there had Elijah Drinkowitz on the hot seat ready to go. But this season, the Tigers have put it together. They're a veteran unit. They're a unit that's turned heads. And in the case of Ryan Wingo, you look at that wide receiving core and you see 2 guys who are putting up massive numbers. Luther Burden right now is up for a Biletnikoff. I mean, he's having a sensational year. So if you're Ryan Wingo, you have the NIL legislation that works in your favor currently in the state of Missouri. You have the ability to see what the Tigers are doing with their wide receivers, and still the Texas Longhorns get a massive win. And that's why I think we need to talk about this, because I don't think it's going to be long before other states adapt analogous legislation that allows them to have their high school athletes profit off of their name, image, and likeness. But part of the reason why I want to talk about Texas getting this win is it was just a few years ago where you saw the number 1 player in the state of Texas, Quinn Ewers, forego his senior season because Texas high school athletes could not do what Missouri high school athletes are able to do now. JW Crunch says copycat what? Did he say area? Yes, NIL. And what I mean when I say that, JW, is that right now, if we take, for example, the Missouri law that the Missouri legislature has passed that allows high school athletes to benefit off of their name, image, and likeness, we already know that most of these major donors also donate to the local politicians, right? They're also in their ears. So if Missouri is able to get away with this legislation that allows them to pay high school athletes while they are still in high school, so long as they are committed to and sign a financial aid agreement, to which you can sign multiple, by the way, as long as they've signed a financial aid agreement, they can start profiting off of their name, image, and likeness while in high school. That's where I say it's a copycat league. And the reason why I say that, JW, is because I think it's only a matter of time before we start to see mass amounts of states change their laws on books to be able to mirror what Missouri does, so that way, at the very least, they're on equal playing field. Because right now, Missouri has a major leg up on the competition with this legislature. That's where I'm saying we are absolutely, at least in my opinion, we're absolutely in a copycat league. And I think we can point to the existence of collectives in the NIL era, where Texas A&M, they make their collectives, and then across the nation, you see so many other institutions modeling their collectives after that. I remember when they were being made, I mean, the lawyers that met, my goodness. So that's what I meant. Becky finally made it to a live stream morning from Tulsa. Glad you could make it, Becky. I hope you're having a good morning. Hope Tulsa's treating you well. Haven't been to Tulsa in years. Man, it's been a while. Wingo's recruitment isn't over. And of course not. It's never over until they sign the dotted line. But that being said, huge win for Texas. I'm just glad Mizzou didn't get him for now. That's the second major recruit who's told Nwaneri that they would join him at Mizzou if he committed. Well, they left him high and dry. Flip season, I hope. Rob, this is a very good point. And in no way, shape, or form do I think that Ryan Wingo to Texas is a guarantee when Nwaneri flips. But I do think you're on to something. Even if it's just 10%, right? What do we talk about all the time, Rob? Recruiting, college football, it's drops in a bucket. So even if it is just, what if it moves the percentage? We'll go low. What if it moves the percentage in OU's favor 5 to 3%, 3 to 5%? We'll say that. What if that bucket only needed 2 more percent? Right? I mean, Oklahoma did great work up until that point. What if that bucket only needed 2 more percent? Now, there's a world where the bucket needed 20% and you didn't get it. And that's fine. That's fine. But there's also a world where that bucket only needed a bit more. Now, I know Nwaneri said that Oklahoma wasn't in his second place, and I'm not Nwaneri. I'm not an insider. So listen, whatever he says, take his word for it. But at the same time, whenever I listened to the Oklahoma people, they certainly felt like they were at the very least, in a really good position. And then you back it up with another good point, Rob. Then again, others not committing to Mizzou gives them more money to keep him. Yeah, listen, I think they threw the kitchen sink at him regardless. But I am curious to see if they would throw more, right? Which is absolutely a theory as well. I think you're very on it this morning, Rob. No doubt about it. What I will say is this. What does this addition mean for the Texas Longhorns? Well, this is where I do want to give Steve Sarkisian and company his flowers, right? Because what they have done on the recruiting trail, I do find impressive. Last cycle, the biggest need they had was inside linebacker. They got the number 1 inside linebacker in the nation. This cycle, the biggest need they had was edge. They go out and get 5-star Colin Simmons. They then go out and get 5-star offensive tackle Brandon Baker. We know Kyle Flood is a hell of a recruiter. Kyle Flood can assemble offensive line classes that looks like he's assembling the Avengers. And it's not just relegated to Texas. I talked about it when he was at Alabama. I thought he'd assembled the greatest offensive line recruiting class of all time. He then backed it up with what he did at Texas. So the guy can flat out recruit. They get Brandon Baker, and now they get Ryan Wingo. They're still in it for Kobe Black. I'm not saying they've won that battle. I'm saying they're still in it for Kobe Black. I mean, there's still some prospects on the board. Great job. Great job winning this. Ty, my guess is that Wingo just raised his price tag by committing to Texas. Missouri is going to counter offer him, and then Texas will probably counter that offer, Eric. In fact, to my knowledge, that's exactly what probably ended up happening yesterday, is that it was counter offers and offers. You're right, though, Eric. This is not done. The majority of your 5 stars, we all have to realize something, guys. Just because you're committed doesn't mean you cut off communication. And in a lot of times, that coaching staff is still going to push. Why wouldn't they? You would not be doing your job if you didn't push. Even if you're committed to a Brent Venables class, right? And Brent Venables, Dabo, they don't let you take that has a bill that is cop. Oh, well, then that's exactly that's exactly what I was going towards earlier, right? That it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before other states start adapting it. If Georgia already has adapted it, thank you for telling me this, Stephen, because I think I might have missed this. If Georgia legislature is already adapting it, I would imagine that the Texas legislature will adapt it in the next session. I'd imagine that'll be on the docket. In fact, I probably could go into the bills being proposed and find it now. I'd imagine Oklahoma. Well, I think Oklahoma is moving towards something like that, if I'm not mistaken, Stephen. I know they're tinkering with their NIL legislation right now. California is trying to pass something like that. It's only a matter of time for Florida, especially if Georgia does it. Florida's going to do it expeditiously if Georgia does it. I mean, it's going to be a domino effect. It's a copycat league, right? It's a copycat league. That's what I mean when I said that, JW, is that right there. Everybody's trying to vie for the same advantage. And if one team has an advantage that others do not have, they're going to make the necessary adjustments. But what I was saying is that this Texas staff, Texas is always recruited well. There's a difference in recruiting well and recruiting smart. And Oklahoma fans, you're getting a full-on clinic in this right now. It's so funny, actually, because I would talk about this all the time, whenever it came to Texas. And now, whenever we look at what Brent Venables is doing at Oklahoma, I mean, he's putting on a clinic in how to recruit. And the reason why I find it interesting is there's a little bit of a similarity here in the sense of Lincoln Riley was not recruiting smart to Oklahoma. He was recruiting well. You got guys, but it wasn't smart, right? And now I think whenever we see Brent Venables recruit, now I think it's very easy because there is such a massive difference in the way Venables recruits to Riley. Whereas whenever we look at Sark as compared to Mack or compared to Herman or compared to Strong, the differences are a little bit more nuanced, where whenever we look at the difference between Lincoln Riley and Brent Venables, the difference is much more pronounced because Riley would only take like 16 and Venables taking full classes. But yeah, that's what I mean, right? Like Venables is putting on a clinic and showing people the way that this Texas staff is, and that's why I have to give them their flowers. They're recruiting smart, really smart, really smart. Now, what that means in terms of results, now it's more pressure. That is the flip side of this. You recruit smarter, there's inevitably more pressure. How do you answer that pressure remains to be seen. Let's hit some comments real fast. Ty, I think there's a difference. Oh, no doubt there's a difference between being a great recruiter and a great developer of talent. Just because you're a great recruiter doesn't mean you can develop the talent correctly. 100%. 100%. That's 100% true. You've got to have both. There's no doubt about that, Anthony. You're 100% on the money right there. No doubt. Everyone has to stay competitive on the field. But I also don't think that Texas A&M recruits smart, Eric. Right? Like, this is a great example. Texas A&M recruits well. They took 152 defensive linemen. You only can play X amount of them. Their secondary is porous. Their linebacking core is porous. They took some good wide receivers, but there's so many holes in that roster because they're not recruiting smart. They're recruiting well. They're signing a bunch of talent, but like, if I give you a bunch of talent in one area, are you really recruiting well? Whereas when I look at Texas and Oklahoma, if their biggest need is edge, they're like, okay, well, I'm going to get a few edges. I'm going to get some offensive line. I'm going to get some wide receivers. That way I look across and I've answered everything. When I see A&M, it almost looks like A&M is star watching. And they just go, you're all 5 stars. Come here. They look at their recruiting class at the end of it and they're like, oh, great. We took 15 defensive linemen, 3 kickers, and a water boy. We have the number 2 ranked class, but like, I think that's a great example of recruiting well but not necessarily. I think Texas A&M has everything they need except coaching. I agree there, but I also don't think that they've recruited all that great outside of a few positions. And I understand we can point to they signed the number one recruiting class of all time. They did. They've recruited well, but it was a bunch of defensive linemen. And it was a one-off. Like if we look at A&M, they recruit a bunch of talented players, but the classes don't have that cohesiveness that I'm talking about. They recruit well. They recruit well. They recruit a lot of talent, but it's just like this. You had the number one class of all time, and right now you have holes in your secondary. That's because we don't question what they did up front. We question everything else in that defense. It's because they didn't recruit everything else the way they recruited that defensive front. That's a problem, right? The fact, and you are right, Eric. You are right. Ultimately, coaching is a major issue there, no doubt about it. And I'm just certainly not trying to reduce that. You are 100% correct. But I also think A&M is another example of a team that recruits really, really, really well. But then when we talk about A&M this year, whenever I was talking about Alabama playing them, it was like, okay, well, what are we worried about? A&M's defensive front. What else? Your mom. You got nothing. Yeah, they got talented wide receivers, very talented. And this year was a little bit different because of the quarterback going down. But if we're speaking specifically of defense, you're worried about their defensive front. Their linebacker play has been up and down. They have one linebacker who's spectacular, and their secondary, they got Bryce Anderson in the secondary. Number one, he's exceptional. He's great. But outside of that, they just don't have it. Like all their talent, or the majority of it, is concentrated on that defensive front. And I think that that paints the picture of a team that has recruited well, but not necessarily smart. Imagine if some of those cats that aren't playing as much, imagine if they were a 5-star. They have guys, but they have guys the same way that other schools have guys. You can have guys, but did you recruit smart? I contend the answer is no, Eric. I contend the answer is no. I agree that they aren't being coached well, but I think if we really look at this, you're not going to win national championships just recruiting one area exceptionally well. Kirby recruits exceptionally well, right? Nick recruits exceptionally well. I think A&M has recruited the defensive line exceptionally well, but I don't know that they have put together 5 years of classes where you look at it and you're like, yeah, your talent is super cohesive. It's super spread apart, and we can build football teams with this. I think I look at it and I'm like, man, you wanted a lot of defensive linemen. That's what I think every time I look at an A&M recruiting class. I don't look at them and think, man, you took a cohesive class. At least not the majority of 5 years, which is where I think you're right. Coaching, no doubt. Coaching is a big problem. There's no doubt about that. Sure, but I mean, just because they have guys that we wanted doesn't necessarily mean much, right? For instance, like Nick Saban and them, they recruit a lot of guys. All right. They didn't get a Des Ricks. They didn't get a Jaleel Hurley. They didn't get a Caleb Downs. They didn't get a Tony Mitchell. So I guess my question is who did they really want that bad over any of those guys? Because it's not coming to me. It's not coming to me, unfortunately. Yes, they got Denver Harris. That didn't exactly work out great. And that, so you're not wrong, Eric. But once again, I think your major point is pointing us right back into my main argument here. Yeah, one. That's not compelling to me. I'm sorry. Maybe I just look at it different, but like that's just one. And Denver, I'm not saying I have the inside in that recruiting battle. Denver was going everywhere, Eric. Denver was telling the people at Texas he's not coming to Texas. He was going to LSU. He was sending pictures while at LSU saying, I'm home. Then he was going to Bama saying he was going to Bama. Denver was going everywhere. He was going everywhere. That recruiting battle was all over the place. So no, listen, I think we agree on a lot, Eric, but I also think that like you can't just recruit a bunch of defensive linemen and expect for your whole defense to be great. And that's where I think that we're going to have to disagree on A&M. They've recruited well. I just don't think they've recruited cohesive. I just don't think they've recruited cohesively. And you're right on Denver, but Denver was going everywhere before he was going to A&M. Everywhere. That was a wild battle in and of itself. Let's talk about USC. Because USC's in trouble. I said this during USC's first game. Whenever USC was playing San Jose State, while I was watching the game, I've said this time and time again, I started looking and trying to find where you have to rank to win a national championship. And what I found was you cannot be one-dimensional. And unfortunately, USC has remained one-dimensional. Now, the worst scoring defense to win a national championship since 2000 was Auburn, 2010 Auburn with Cam Newton. Number 53 or 54 in the nation. I always say it wrong, and I'm always off by one. It's either 53 or 54, but just know you got to be below number 60 since 2000. That's what the numbers tell us. Whenever we look at USC, that defense remains a problem. And this brings me back to the point we talk about so many times. What is the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over again while expecting different results. And with USC and with Lincoln Riley, he has continued to rely on Alex Grinch year after year after year, and the results have been the same. The results have been the exact same. Hasn't worked. Now we have to talk about whether or not there are bigger problems at USC. And I have a video coming out after this that we'll talk about. Because I now have to sit and question, okay, if USC, and I'm going to pose a hypothetical, because I know there's a lot of rumors flying around right now about, according to USC fans, he overachieved. My word. What does underachieving look like, Lone? what would underachieving look like? Oh no. Oh no. Here's the thing, guys. Alex Grinch gave an interview this week, and he said something that I almost broke my jaw. He said, yeah, we weren't expecting Utah and this player to run the wheel route, and they caught us with it. Here's where I will say, in fairness to Grinch, the player that he was talking about, he started off this year as a safety for Utah, and he's transitioned to an offensive player. So Grinch wasn't wrong when he said, like, I don't know, like that guy right there, I didn't see it on film. First off, he is wrong there because they'd ran it a week earlier. The exact same play. They ran the exact same play a week before. I have it on all 22. I'm not going to pull it up, but if I needed to pull it up, I could pull it up. Utah ran the exact same play a week before. But in fairness to Grinch, I had to look him up because when I went on Utah's roster, he was listed as a safety. But he lit that USC defense up, and I start looking into him, and I was like, wait, is this the cat Utah has that they're getting to do everything? And yeah, it's him. Very talented player. Former 3-star. Just goes to show you. Stars, hey. To say, yes, Eric, thank you. You beat me to it. So I love you, Eric. You're always one step ahead of me. That same kid was a wide receiver in high school. Yeah, no doubt. And he's very talented. He's a fun football player to watch. Here's where Grinch completely, if he would have said, if Alex Grinch would have gone in front of the media and said, hey, they got a kid on that team who he started as a safety, he's transitioned more to offense, and he hurt us a lot more than I thought he would. If he would have said that, I would have been disappointed, but I would have been like, okay, you're giving credit where it's due. You're saying, hey, we planned, and that kid is just really good. They had a great game plan for him, and he hats off to him. If he would have said that, I'd have been like, fair. He came out and said, yeah, I wasn't expecting a wheel route, as if that's some exotic concept. My brother in Christ, I don't care if I'm on the football field. You should probably still expect a wheel route. I don't care if they've pulled in a linebacker. It's a wheel route. Like, the fact that that was where he was like, I didn't expect a wheel route. That's been one of the biggest offensive weapons over the past 3 years. You didn't expect a wheel route. Like, a wheel route. That took me for a loop. A wheel route. And I think I understand what he was trying to say. But a wheel route. That's not an exotic concept. That's not a concept that you should have to drill for days in film. You can go to your local YMCA and see a wheel route. 100%, Eric. 100%. You're 1,000% right. It's not only poor scouting. I can't even consider not stopping a wheel route poor scouting. That's poor coaching. It brings me back to last year with Alabama, where it was like a wheel route was Alabama's defensive kryptonite. And it's like, how? You're in man. Out of all the people you're checking where the running back is. How do you let this happen? Well, Alabama gets a more experienced defensive coordinator. You know what's not killing Alabama this year? Wheel routes. Yes, Tennessee had that one touchdown where it wasn't a wheel route. It was a cool concept, but Tennessee had Chris Braswell covering their slot, Squirrel White. First off, that was a busted coverage on the Alabama secondary. The safety was supposed to take outside, then in. Chris Braswell was responsible for everything inside, over top responsible for everything outside. That didn't get communicated. Braswell ended up going. That happened. Look, cool. It didn't happen again. Didn't happen again. It did not happen again. You can get caught once or twice by some of these heavy veer and shoot offenses, right? Like Heupel, his pre-snap motion, he can catch you once in a game. That's fine. But to go up against a team that has half of their starters out, that just ran the same play a week before, and for then you to go to the media and say, yeah, we got beat, and it was the wheel route. Like, I didn't see that on film. It's a wheel route. You shouldn't have to see that on film to know how to account for that. That'd be like saying, I didn't know they did halfback dive. What? Like, that's a bread and butter. What do you mean you didn't know they did that? That was incredible to me. But here's the big issue, ladies and gentlemen. Who is worse, Golding or Grinch? I'll say Grinch. And here's why. And I might have some disagreement here. Exactly, Eric. Adjustments. And listen, Eric, to take it a step further, it's one thing for a Heupel, veer and shoot offense to be able to create mismatches. That's what the entire offense is based out of. It's another thing for a pro-style Utah offense to just show you a basic look, float the back out the backfield, and you not know how to cover it. Like, one of them is at least a concept derived on creating a mass matchup that's advantageous to the offense. The other is just, hey guys, it's 2nd and 1. We're gonna do a wheel route. And I don't know, man. That was incredible to me. But USC fans, I have bad news. I have bad news. It's not some exotic concept. I have bad news. I don't think Alex Grinch is the only problem with USC. And we're going to talk about this more in the video, but I am going to give you a little teaser right now, a little morsel, an appetizer to satiate your appetite until that video comes out. Alex Grinch and this defense have not improved, and now they're going into a league where your offenses are more smash mouth. Your offenses are far more smash mouth. If there was anywhere where the Alex Grinch defense would work, it was the Pac-12. It's not working. And Josh Pate put it best when he was saying about Utah, where he was like, I hope people didn't think that Utah found like an epiphany in their offense. I hope they realized that they just ran up against USC, and USC's defense will make anybody's offense look like that. That was from Josh Pate. Once again, he hit the nail on the head. They're losing the battle of physicality. They're losing the battle of physicality. They were losing it with Lincoln Riley, Alex Grinch, and Benny Wiley in the Big 12. OU's not losing the battle of physicality anymore. They're not. Even when we look at games like Texas, I mean, they took it to Texas. That was a fight. That was a good old-fashioned brawl. That's what made that game one of the best games this year. Top 3, in my opinion. Because both the Oklahoma offensive line, the Texas defensive line, that was a war of physicality. It was a war for 4 quarters. Texas won some reps. OU won some reps. It was beautiful to watch. Scouts will watch that. I guarantee it. Guarantee it. And the same can be said for the reverse. Texas offensive line won some reps. The Oklahoma defensive line won some reps. Scouts will watch that for both sides of the line of scrimmage. It was a war. That's what you want to see. Where you had 2 units who wanted to make it known off of physicality alone, you're going to have to feel us. Like at the very worst this game, we're going to make you feel our presence. I don't see that. I don't see that from USC. I don't see them winning the battle of physicality. If you're not winning the battle of physicality in the Pac-12, and not even winning it in the Pac-12, because that's a little bit of a slap in the face to some of these teams in the Pac-12 this year. Utah, Oregon, Washington, they're going out and playing big boy football. Let's give credit where it's due. And I know some people are like, wait, Washington is playing defense. I'm not saying they have got a top 10 defense. I'm not saying they have got one of the nation's most hard-nosed defenses. I'm saying they have a defense that is good enough to allow the offense to continue to do what they do. They had a scare. Sure. Welcome to the club, Washington. Everybody in college football has had a scare against a team they had no business having a scare against. Welcome. OU, you as well. Welcome. Glad you could join us. Every other college football team has been looking at OU and Washington just crushing opponents, being like, well, now you've both had your moment. Well, welcome to where all of us are in a struggle year. Beautiful. Beautiful. If you're not winning the battle of physicality there, what makes me believe you're going to win the battle of physicality against a Penn State, against a Michigan, against an Ohio State, against an Oregon, against a Washington? I mean, already there's 5 teams that you got to worry about. So, okay, it's not just the defensive coordinator. Okay, it's defensive coordinator and strength and conditioning. Okay, we can pivot off of that, right? Maybe. Here's the last thing that worries me. The way Lincoln Riley structures teams. Because I don't know that it's a recipe for long-term success whenever you're not rebuilding a team. Now, when you're rebuilding, by all means, but I don't know how successful you're going to be recruiting against Ohio State, relying on taking 16 guys in your recruiting class and then using the transfer portal. You want to know why I'm not moved by that strategy? Because Ohio State will recruit a top 10 class, they will recruit a top 5 class, and they too will go to the transfer portal, and they get the pick of the litter. Bama, they're going to recruit a top 10, top 5 recruiting class, and then they're going to go to the transfer portal, and they're going to get the pick of the litter. Texas, OU, right now, they're recruiting top 10 recruiting classes, and then they're going to the transfer portal, and they too are getting the pick of the litter. So it's not just Lincoln Riley who has access and is utilizing the transfer portal. He's not the only coach doing that. Ryan Day is doing it. Nick Saban has done it. Now, not to the same degree. True. But Alabama was one of the only teams a few seasons ago that was a top 10 team. It was Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas. That was it. There were 3 teams in all of college football. Top 10 transfer portal acquisitions, top 10 recruiting. OU, Alabama, Texas. That was it. So yes, the transfer portal, that's a viable strategy, especially when you're rebuilding. When you're rebuilding, hats off. You've got to create a foundation that will then at least attract high school talent. And I think we could argue USC was rebuilding, but I also think we can argue that when you're a game away from the college football playoffs, when you have a Heisman Trophy winner, you should be able to attract talent. To USC in Southern California, you should be able to attract talent. So yes, I mean, their recruiting classes are still not, they're not a bad recruiting class. Once again, he's recruiting well, but it's not cohesive. It's not cohesive. And I don't know how it's going to work when you get to the Big Ten and there are top 10 classes in recruiting, and they too are going to the transfer portal. The difference is it's easier to believe in what Alabama is doing right now. It's easier to believe in what Oklahoma is doing right now, in what Ohio State is doing right now, in what Georgia is doing right now. The list goes on than it is to believe in what Lincoln Riley and USC are doing right now. Because with all those teams I just listed you can tell me they have a problem, and that's fine. Do you want to know why I say that's fine? Because all those teams I just listed you, absent USC, are working towards a solution. When I look at USC, I see problems. I don't see a team as we currently sit here and speak that's working towards solutions. That's not to say that they won't work towards them in the offseason, but the offseason is the offseason. Season's done. And for a lot of USC fans, the season's done now because you're not getting to the college football playoffs. I have bad news for you. If you couldn't stop Utah, good luck against Penix. Good luck against Oregon. Because those teams are different. Yeah. Oregon, Washington, in my opinion at least, I'm having a blast watching them. They're different. That could get ugly. Let's hit some comments. If his leg was better, we would have lost that game. Yeah, Plumlee is a beast. Oklahoma got against their prevent defense in both halves. Yeah, the rushing right now at OU, that's kind of a head scratcher. There's some injuries in the running back room. They're allowing people to get healthy. But even if you talk to Oklahoma fans, I think that's the one area, Mark, where they're like, hey, we know there's talent in the running back room. Sawchuk is a talented cat. Barnes is a talented dude, but it's just not quite coming together right now. Now, before that game, it was because the running backs, not in totality, but in part because sometimes the running backs got so used to going fast that they would then take that mindset to the play and reach the hole before the pulling guard or the pulling tackle would get there. But that's the only area. Well, that and special teams for OU. But even then, like Lebby is trying to get something figured out. It's just that's the one area of the Oklahoma team that they gotta shore up. They gotta shore up that rushing attack. And the talent is there. The talent is there, which is why I say if you're an Oklahoma fan, it's kind of an interesting position to be in. Because, yeah, it hasn't come about, but it's like, okay, well, we know we have the guys. It's just, but that and special teams. Those are the two areas for Oklahoma where it's like, okay, special teams is a problem. Was a problem. Hopefully they've gone about fixing that. USC is losing to Cal. I have them beating Cal, Jason, but I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I had them beating Utah as well because I thought they'd have a get-back game. I thought they'd beat Utah by a point or two. But I thought Utah's lack of some of their top players, Cam Rising, they have a tight end who was going to be a mismatch through and through who's not playing. I thought USC would be angry and they'd have a get-back game against a limping Utah team. I was wrong there. So while I think USC beats Cal, understand I also thought they would beat Utah because they'd be angry. I'll put it like this. They better beat Cal. Because if you don't beat Cal, oh boy, do you have issues. It is a losable game, though, Jason, because I do think Cal is better than people give them credit for. I completely concede that, no doubt about it. I think I'm looking at this from the lens of what should happen. And it's like, Lincoln, buddy, listen, if you lose to Oregon and you lose to Washington, I will be coming on here and I will at least be arguing, yeah, you lost to Oregon, you lost to Washington. I could have seen that coming. If you lose to Cal after you lose to a Utah team that has had your number, guys, do we realize that Utah just told USC we don't even have to have our starters to beat you? We beat you twice last year. We're going to beat you this year without our talent. Like, that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen, but it did. And so you're probably 100% right, Jason. You're probably 100% right. I'll be willing to eat that crow. I never mind being wrong. I don't like being wrong, but, being wrong gives me an opportunity to learn. And what I'm learning about USC is I think that the problems are far is a strong word. The problems reach further than I had previously anticipated. That's wrong, Mark. That's wrong. You know what's interesting, Chicken? I've started to notice Alabama's offensive line, well, they have problems. They're starting to find solutions to those problems. Texas's offensive line is a much better example. We'll use Texas's offensive line, Chicken, because I think it tells a more complete story. Texas's offensive line was fantastic in pass pro last year. Fantastic. Great. They were good. Just good at run pro. Not bad. Not great. Serviceable. But the reason why I bring that up is because that's a little bit interesting. Anybody that's played offensive line in chat, anybody that knows offensive line play, you'll know that it, in theory, makes sense for run blocking to be easier because you're firing off the ball. You're 310 pounds, firing off the ball, initiating contact, as opposed to being 310 pounds, having to catch somebody that's going towards you. Traditionally speaking, pass protection should be much more difficult. So it's always really interesting to me when we see offensive lines excel in pass pro and not be as good in run protection. It happens. I'm not trying to say it doesn't, but it's always a cool little thing to me. I don't know. I just kind of nerd out when I see that. And I get all these little ideas in my head, and I really want to just start watching and drilling to see why. Why is it? I don't know. That's the nerd in me. Let's talk about OU looks for a statement against Kansas. And I know people are going to say, but it's Kansas. Kansas isn't a bad team, guys. They're not. They're not a bad team. I'm not saying they're a world beater, but they're a serviceable team. They're a serviceable team. They're well coached. If Bean's the quarterback, Bean isn't a terrible backup quarterback. He can hurt you. When we look, Kansas is coached well. They've got some corners who are really good. They've got a corner, I think, who's really good. Really good. They got a running back who is toting the rock. Well coached. I've already said it. And you have a quarterback who's experienced. So this isn't a walk in the park. It's a game that I think OU will win, but let's understand Kansas isn't going to give you this game. They're going to want to take it. Bean is a quarterback that has seen a lot of college football. USC playing the roles for this season. USC will beat Washington this season. The game is at the Coliseum. That'd be awesome, man. That would be cool. That'd be really cool. USC will beat Washington this season. I have Washington over USC, Eric, but listen, when you have Caleb, that's the part that makes it so frustrating. That's the part that really makes it so frustrating, Eric. I'm really glad you said this comment. Because I don't think they will. But the reason why I'm so frustrated with USC is it's like your offense shouldn't be struggling some of the ways that it is. And that's going to be interesting to see. That's going to be wild, though. That's going to be wild. Well done. Could USC be having a down year? Sure, they could be having a down year, Tommy. That's a completely fair analysis, right? I don't want to be all one way and not understanding the possibilities that lie, right? I don't want to be all like doom, gloom, and not understand that there are deeper nuances here. No doubt about it, Tommy. I will ask you this question, though, Tommy, in the interest of fairness, right? And if you'd like to reply, I'd love to have the conversation with you because this is how we grow, right? This is how we learn. USC could be having a down year. I contend that very well could be. That could summarize it. Teams have down years. It happens. Where do you think it gets better going into the Big Ten? That's what scares me, Tommy. If the Pac-12 still existed and you had all, years to go, I'd be much more willing to be just like, hey, this could be a one-off. But the reason why I do hold hesitation in terms of the long-term viability of the current plan that USC has implemented is because, and I'm not trying to be reductionist by asking you, I'm genuinely curious. You might hit me with an answer right now that makes me say, fair. Hey, I'm wrong. I'm completely wrong. I didn't take that into account. 100% you're right. You're right. No doubt about it. But I just don't see where it gets better going into the Big Ten. You're going up against teams that are more embracing the physical nature of football. You're going up against teams that have won college football playoff games. You're going into a better league. Maybe not better this year because the Pac-12 is ridiculously good this year, but that's neither here nor there. Chicken says Lloyd averages 8 yards. Lloyd is fantastic, but they don't run it. I don't know. That's a great point. And Mark, I think a lot of you have known long enough that I don't typically lean into theories, conspiracy theories. But Mark, the one you just typed, and I'm not trying because there's a negative connotation when you say conspiracy theory, and that's certainly not my contention here, Mark. It's just for lack of a better word. This is one I will lean into. That's because Lloyd takes shine away from Caleb. Honestly, that's the only thing I can think of, is that they want the offense to run through Caleb. And that's fine. But you got a running back that is toting that ball. You got a running back that's toting that rock. And he's getting it done. He is talented. I'm all right. I got my foil hat on. That's great. I agree with this, Eric. Listen. I do agree with this. No. And you say are the only teams that play tough football in your opinion? I agree and disagree in part. And I'm sure once I say what it is, you'll understand where I'm coming from, because I think we agree almost 100% with the basic theory of what you're saying. I still think you have teams in the Big Ten that aren't necessarily good football teams, right? They aren't necessarily teams that you think of are going to win a college football playoff game. But the way they play the game of football is almost like the kryptonite to Lincoln Riley's style of playing. So I don't disagree with the notion that there really are three Big Tens, three big teams in the Big Ten. Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. I think you hit the nail on the head there. That are the real powerhouses that should and probably will loom above. My big question is, though, is the Big Ten still embraces a more physical style of play than we have seen Lincoln Riley embrace? And could that be the kryptonite for his success? Could he lose to teams that he has no business losing to because styles make matchups? That's my only question, Eric. But I do think you are right here. And I think sometimes analysts, including myself, we can get so big on this notion that, oh, well, the SEC is this, the Big Ten is this. And we look and it's like, okay, well, the Big Ten is good, but it's really like three teams that are exceptional. The SEC is good. There's a lot of good teams. Well, this year, the SEC is all over the place, but usually the SEC is good, but then there's like three teams that are just exceptional. I don't disagree where you say I would put USC as the fourth best team to date in the Big Ten. Are you including USC or Oregon and Washington, Eric? Because that might change my answer. But I understand completely where you're coming from, and I don't disagree with that comment. I don't. I think you are right that we do, and myself included, I tend to prop up the Big Ten on those three teams, but I also think there's a style of football played in the Big Ten that I think could be antithetical. No, okay. That's fair. I think there's a style of football played in the Big Ten that could be antithetical to the way that Lincoln Riley wants to succeed, which there's no way of knowing until it happens. But I will say, as we sit here, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And I do tend to do that, and that is something I need to be more cognizant of, because you're not wrong. The Big Ten, listen, Iowa, I know Michigan's going through a lot right now, but that young man that went and scouted teams, he should get a pay raise for having to scout Iowa. Like, that offense is painful, right? Like, so yeah, no doubt about it. Let's hit back to Oklahoma, because Oklahoma, Kansas, going to be a really good game, I think. I think it's going to be a really good game. I think Oklahoma is going to win, but here's something that Oklahoma is going to have to account for. Kansas has got a nasty rush attack. And that is going to be where I'm interested, because we know that Bean is good, right? He's serviceable. And if you give him a dangerous rushing attack in Kansas with a good coaching staff, he can make something happen. But this is why I just say, I just think that OU has an answer. Now, I do think this game could be closer than people anticipate, right? I do think this game could be closer than a lot of people anticipate. You're going to see, Sooner says OU by 11. Could be. I will say, Sooner, I think if it's OU by 11, that Kansas is going to test Oklahoma early, and then Oklahoma is going to pull off, like, just by being the more consistent football team through 4 quarters. Which, listen, you don't always have to kick someone's teeth in. Sometimes you just need to go with your lunch pail, play 4 quarters of solid football, and take home the dub. It doesn't always have to be, I'm going to kick your teeth in. That's why you didn't hear any concern from me when OU beat UCF in the manner they did, because the only thing I thought is, okay, congratulations, Oklahoma. Welcome to the rest of college football's year. Y'all have been killing teams, except for Texas. That was a close win, but that's totally different. A close win against Texas is totally different than a close win against UCF. Point being, Texas has had a close win. Alabama had a close win against UCF. Washington went to the ringer against a team they had no business being in a game with. So you just caught up with the rest of college football, right? But I do think Kansas is going to play Oklahoma a lot closer than a lot of people think, because I think Kansas is a better team than people give them credit for. They're not ranked, so I think people tend to be like, it's the Kansas of old. No, it's a good team. They're well coached. Bean is a good quarterback. Eric types it in right here where he says, Kansas plays well at home. And I have no doubt, Eric, that Brent Venables is telling them, hey, this is a good team. This is a team that can catch you if you don't give them their full credit. But that's why I don't think the OU will be caught, because Brent Venables seems like he's keeping his skis in front of him right now. Right? Brent Venables seems like a coach that's putting his skis in front of him right now. And that's good. You don't want to get over your skis. I don't know if any of you are snowboarders, skiing, but if you get over your skis, you're going to fall. I have no doubt that Brent Venables is going to be drilling to Oklahoma all week. Hey, this is a good Kansas team. Hey, this is a really good Kansas team. I bet he's found some things in film that I haven't seen, and he's like, oh, this right here is fantastic. Because I don't know Brent Venables, but from the interviews I've watched, from the people that have been around college football, that's how they speak of him, that he is a dude, a relentless dude, in the best way possible, where he is going to make sure every opponent can upset you. And I think what I mean when I say that is it's just like Nick Saban at Alabama. You'd have reporters asking Alabama, oh, well, you play this team this week, but Tennessee's next week. What do you think about that? And Nick Saban would be like, what do you mean? I'm not worried about Tennessee. I'm worried about this team. I think Brent Venables is very, very much the same, where he preaches to his team, we can get upset any given week. That's just the type of coach I view Brent Venables as, that he's just that way. So OU has a tough game in front of them, a lot tougher than people are giving them credit for, but I still think Oklahoma has the keys to victory. Here's where I think they can find success. Dillon Gabriel has been great for them this season. He must be great for them in this game. If Oklahoma's rushing attack hasn't found itself yet, and it might not. If it hasn't found itself, then Dillon Gabriel and Jeff Lebby have got to use the quick passing game as an extension of the rushing game in order to keep that Kansas defense off balance, keep them on their heels, keep them guessing. And in turn, it keeps your defense off the field. That's going to be something we need to watch, because you might not have the ability, right? Because Steven says, do you feel that the weather is going to make it a close game or no? It's supposed to be, is it supposed to be pretty nasty? Game time weather. On ESPN, it says 38 degrees and sunny. 38 degrees and sunny is football weather. So if it's that, I'm not too worried about it. But if it is rainy, Steven, then yeah, of course. Rainy games, that always makes it a little bit more difficult. And especially if you don't have a traditional rushing attack to lean on, because that's what you typically do in the rain. You just say, okay, screw it. We're going to run it right down your throat. We don't have to worry about the big shot. So yeah, no doubt about it. It is something, but if it's 38 degrees and sunny, then I don't think you worry about that. I don't think you worry about that as much. There's rain forecasted. Gotcha. Hey, if there's rain forecasted, then that could get problematic. I'll tell you what's not problematic, ladies and gentlemen, and that's Shady Mile. Shady Mile Whiskey and Shady Mile Bourbon, they've got you covered. One of the oldest distilleries in the state of Kentucky, a state synonymous with whiskey. And my favorite thing about Shady Mile is that they have you, the consumer, at the forefront of everything they do. Whenever you hear that this comes from one of the oldest distilleries in the state, you'd probably be inclined to believe that it is going to be a pricey bottle of alcohol, maybe out of your price range. But luckily, that's where you'd be wrong. And that's really what attracted me to Shady Mile. The fact that it's a family-run business who looks after their consumer, and they operate under a very similar assumption that I operate under. The best way to retain business, the best way to build yourself is by giving a quality product, and the rest will take care of itself. If you give a quality product and you have the barrier to entry be relatively low, people will notice and people will build. And that's exactly what Shady Mile did. They gave you a quality product at a quality price point, and I can't talk enough about them. As you can see this weekend, we got into the Shady Mile rye. We also got into the Shady Mile wheat right above my head as we were watching college football, and UFC gave us a great weekend. If you're in the market for a new bottle of whiskey, be sure to check out Shady Mile. As always, enjoy responsibly. The only way we can continue to do this as a group, as a bit of a family and a community, is if you do enjoy your Shady Mile responsibly. That way you can come back here for the Monday streams, for the Through the Haze, and for the videos. So if you get a chance, special thank you to Shady Miles, sponsor of the channel. They help us keep the lights on. And as we're winding this down, we'll keep you warm on those cold, rainy days. Absolutely. Absolutely. There it is. Will it be raining Shady Mile? We could all be so lucky, Timothy. We could all be so lucky that it was raining Shady Mile. All you would do then is put out your cup and you'd be fine. Steven says 30% at 11 and increases per hour. At 12, it's 50% and 1 at 60%. Then, yeah, that could definitely have an effect on the game, especially if it's cold and wet. That's dreary. But this is also where I think you're going to see, one, Dillon Gabriel use his legs a bit more. I said this going into the Texas game, where I was like, hey, OU doesn't have a traditional rushing attack at the level that they're probably used to. So watch Dillon Gabriel using his legs. That's what we saw. I think we could see the same thing today. Jeff Lebby doesn't have to treat Dillon Gabriel like an egg this year. He doesn't have to. Steven, you say just FYI, the Shady Mile shirt is coming. See, they didn't send me a shirt. Shady Mile, I'd like a shirt. I'm going to order a shirt. I'm just going to order a shirt, whatever. They sent me 4, you know what? They did send me 4 bottles and a bunch of different swag stuff. I got the sticker, Shady Mile, on the laptop. But Mark, you get 100% what I'm saying, right? Like last year, Gabriel is a crafty quarterback running the football. I'm not saying he's Kyler, but he's got escapability. He's got mobility and he's got escapability. He doesn't have the type of legs like a Jalen Hurts or a Kyler where that's genuinely a major part of the game plan. Where it's like, hey, if the passing game isn't going, I'll just beat you with my legs. You just can't beat me. You have Jackson Arnold behind him. I think he's going to be a dude. I'm also biased because Jackson Arnold came from Denton, where I currently sit, and I'm always biased for Denton players. Oklahoma fans, you'll know I was biased to a Denton player in the Red River rivalry. 2 Denton players, actually. Billy Bowman and Jatavian Sanders. You come from Denton, I'm probably going to sing your praises. That's probably the way it's going to work. And also because I truly believe their next level ability. I remember when those 2 came out at the same time, and it was just like, how is this team so loaded? That team was wild. Neither here nor there. Weather could have an effect, but look for Dillon Gabriel to use his legs defensively. Oklahoma is going to want to make Bean uncomfortable. Oklahoma is going to try and stuff that run, and we know Brent Venables is aggressive. So look for aggression. I think that's what we're going to see. Don't forget Peyton. Yeah, for sure. I was just doing a little bit of a callback. I love Chris, but there's a clip that went viral. OU fans, Texas fans in here, you probably already know if you're on Twitter. There was a clip that went viral from not this past Red River rivalry, but last one. the last Red River rivalry, where Chris was like, "Oh, I'm not worried about Jatavian Sanders," and I was like, Chris, you better worry about Jatavian Sanders. That dude is different. You better worry about Jatavian Sanders. But you're right, Becky. You're right. Peyton Bowen is different. That kid's going to be a star. He needs more play. He needs to see the field more. That's a good problem to have, Becky. The fact that I can point to a player like Peyton Bowen that I think there's no question he needs to be on the field more, that can be a good problem to have because that means there's someone keeping him off the field, at least playing at a high enough level. That's probably true, Sandy. Yeah. That was wild. I'm going to get out of here on that. Not knowing to expect a wheel route. A wheel route. They didn't run the Boise State Statue of Liberty from what was that, 2003, 2002? Oklahoma versus BY or Boise State in the bowl game, 2004, 2000. When was that? You'll know what play I'm talking about, right? Statue of Liberty. Or am I thinking about? I think it was Boise State, Oklahoma, early 2000s. Game came down to the wire. Boise State ran a play, Statue of Liberty. Maybe it was Nebraska I'm thinking about. Irregardless. When am I going to talk about LSU Bama? Monday. We're going to start that on Monday. Yeah. With it being the bye week, it's, just time. Was it that late, Chicken? 07 or 08, Oklahoma man says, wow, I was off on my times. Wow, I was off. I thought it was earlier than that. Okay, fair enough. I thought it was earlier than that. But then again, I was just guessing in the dark. 2006 Fiesta Bowl. That's, yeah. Okay, so irregardless, we're all on the same page about the exact play I'm talking about, right? That's fine. I think we're all in the same era. You're right. Statue. It wasn't the it was a wheel route. Well, listen. Nobody ever said that we were an accurate date podcast. We said that this was a good football podcast, a good interactive college football podcast. This is not a math podcast, right? This is not a date podcast. Because we'd all be failing. Well, I would be failing, and I feel like I'm leading you all astray, which is why we're getting so many different answers. I feel like that's my fault. I'll shoulder that blame. Irregardless, they didn't send some exotic play at you. They sent a wheel route, right? It's not like they lined up a play that then got a name. And whenever we tell our children about great college football moments, you will bring up the Statue of Liberty. I will bring up the kick six. That's not, well, that is a play because they put him back there. Right? They put him back there. A wheel route. What do you think, Maya? What do you think, girl? Could you cover a wheel route? I know you could. Even my dog says she could cover the wheel route. I know you could, girl. I've taught you well. We run routes in the backyard, me and her. She's great at press man. Fantastic at press man. Press woman. I'm sorry. All right, guys, we're going to get out of here because my dog's now giving me judgmental looks. But me thinks people still need to buy. Hey, guys. Hit that Shady Mile link in the description and they'll get you taken care of. We're going to get out of here for today. Expect a video coming down the pipe. At least one today, maybe two. We'll see. In terms of tomorrow, I will be doing our Bleacher Report College Football Pick'em show tomorrow in the morning. Hope to see you all over there. If you haven't already, download the Bleacher Report app. And I know that's tedious, but I truly do believe in what Bleacher Report is doing in terms of their college football content. I think they have a vision, and it's a similar vision to what I have had. And I truly do think there's some cool things on the horizon from Bleacher Report, and I truly hope I get to be a part of it because I really like what they're doing right now. So if you haven't already, download the app. Myself, Jay of Unfair Sports, Nick Battle of Nino's Corner Sports, and Steven of Fanatic Perspective will be on there picking. I'm currently doing pretty darn good, guys. I think my win-loss right now is I think last week I was at 55 games picked correct and 13 or 14 incorrect. So I think I'm sitting at 55 and 13 right now. I'm in the lead, and I'm hoping to take it home. Shady Mile has helped, but I'm hoping to take it home. UCLA let me down this weekend, but Minnesota didn't. So we'll see y'all tomorrow for the Bleacher Report Pick'em show. After that, I probably will do some content in the day. I'll probably have a video or two coming out, so be on the lookout for that. And then you already know the drill. We'll see y'all on Monday for Through the Haze. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your Thursday. Be sure to spend it with friends, to spend it with family. And as Eric said, prayers to all the people up in Maine, because that's awful. And we need to be thankful that we all have the ability to not only continue on our day, but to continue on our day with business as usual, right? And that in and of itself is a blessing, an unbelievable blessing. Trap House booming in the house. Guys, listen, before we get out of here, I need all of you to do me a favor. I know there's only 70 of you in here right now, but you're going to hit the shady, aren't you? Timothy, we talked about this. You can't be telling. But guys, if you haven't already, do me one favor. As soon as this ends, head over to Trap House Boomin's page, subscribe to his channel, click the newest video, hit the like button. That should give him 66 new likes off the rip. That's what you need to do. If you'll allow me to assign you some homework, that's the homework I'm assigning to everybody. Go over, subscribe, like, comment. Trap House, honestly, has been an unbelievable content creator in the Oklahoma sphere. He is going to boom as he already has. And he is just a great dude, man. So y'all do me a favor. Go out, support Trap House if you haven't already. He's got you covered for Oklahoma content. Oklahoma's got a lot of fantastic content creators, and Trap House is absolutely one of them. Posted in here. Yep, I can do that real quick before we get out of here. And Trap House gets brownie points from me because he too quotes Freddie Gibbs. So he gets brownie points from me. There's the link to Trap House's YouTube channel, guys. Be sure to go over there. Give him some love. He deserves it. He makes great content. Eric in here as well. If you're not, or Eric, Jason, I'm looking at Eric's comments. Jason in here as well. If you're not subscribed to the Hall of Fame College Football with Jason and the coach, go over there, subscribe to him as well. You'll see me over there decently frequently, and you'll see Jason over here frequently. So enjoy your day. Count your blessings. We'll see you tomorrow on the Bleacher Report College Football Pick'em show. Hopefully we can keep the good times rolling. That's it. See you.